minutes. And so, with this being said, I want to tell everyone your spiritual practice doesn't have to be anything out of this world. It could be, and in fact, this is Saturn moving into Aries. This is astrological way that we're going to be living life. We're bringing spirituality in day-to-day life. There is no more just, this, I live in the big temples out there and I come down from the Himalayas and now I'm enlightened leader. And this era is done, especially moving in 2027. Again, a little knob drop there. We are now here to live our spiritual practice in a day-to-day life.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. I'm your host, Julie Clough, and today I have on the show Yury Rockit. Hi, Yury.
Hello, Julie. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to have this conversation with you. It's like I tell people, I have the coolest friends, and you're in that group of coolest friends.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, we met in a human design class back 3 or 4 years ago now.
Yes, it does feel like a while ago, for sure.
Yeah, it was a while ago, and we reconnected recently and super excited to have you on the show. You actually well, maybe I shouldn't go into that yet. Let me have you introduce yourself first.
Thank you.
You can see I'm getting ahead of myself already because I'm excited, and
That's
while I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm also gonna remind those of you that are listening to, subscribe to the show, like, share, comment. As we're talking and you have questions or you have responses to the things that we're talking about, put it in the comments and we're happy to answer your questions, so all right, Yury, tell us a little bit about Yury.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie, for having me and everybody else who's listening. It's honor to have you listening to us talking about life and hopefully about a little bit of astrology and spiritual life. And my name is Yury Rockit. I am astrologer as well as a movement specialist, and I do things under this umbrella of ecology of aliveness, where everything streams into. So everything that I teach is regarding to how to make ourselves more alive. And that starts from looking at your astrology, looking at your life, looking at your behavior, looking also at your movement, and of course your human design. We cannot skip that.
I love that. In fact, when we first met, you were doing a lot of, I don't wanna frame this wrong, but, like, exercise
Just do
videos.
exactly. That's
Yeah, like
what it was. It was very much
okay,
a lot of fitness. Yes. Yeah. So
fitness,
you
that's
didn't say it wrong.
a better
It's
word.
yeah.
That was the word I was searching for. Yeah, you were doing a lot of fitness videos, and I remember that distinctly about the work that you were doing. So
Yeah.
take us back a little bit, like, well, first of all, you have this beautiful accent, and we can't just, gloss
Figure
over
it out.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about, like, your background as far as, I'm in the States and, like,
Mhm.
I'm guessing
No, I
you
didn't. No,
didn't
I didn't
develop
grow
that
up.
accent in the
N
States.
no, I did not. No, I did not. Good question. I love to talking about this because I was born in Eastern Europe, in place and country that is called Belarus. In fact, I was actually born proudly, I was born in a place that was called still back then Soviet Union. So
Oh.
when I was 6, Soviet Union fell apart. Interestingly, as we talk about this, we are heading in a similar astrological time when Berlin Wall fell, when Soviet Union fell, that Saturn Neptune conjunction that we are about to experience. For those of you who do not have time reference, we are recording this in February 2026, and this month in February we have this big conjunction of Saturn and Neptune. Here we go. We're going to drop some astrology right away.
That's right.
Um, so, but I think it's also such an interesting connotation, as we're recording this. You mentioned this, and my mind goes back to Soviet Union. I never talk about this, honestly. I always mention that I was born in Belarus, but here comes Soviet Union. So I was born there, and when I was 18, I left my country to study in China and Vietnam. My major was Asian languages, Chinese and Vietnamese. And so I lived about 10 years of my life in Southeast Asia. And that's where my spiritual journey also started there because, of course,
Wow.
as you have to immerse yourself in this whole different dimension, this whole different world, this whole different life, I had to understand how to deal with cultural shock, how to deal with my life, how to become a young adult and functioning young adult in a very different culture, economy, society. And that was fun. That was fun challenge, but also it was very wonderful ground for spirituality because you embrace the, Buddhist thought and Taoist thought and all the Asian thoughts of philosophies that probably were not necessarily native to me. And I guess that's where my English is coming from because I was influenced a lot by Australian people living there. So my English has a lot of Russian influence, of course, Russian native English, but then also some kind of, I guess, British, Australian weird mixture of Southeast Asian flair to it.
You have just like, you're just bringing the whole world to us today, Yuri.
Well, I hope so. Thank you. Thank you.
I
That's
just
the mission.
love that. It's just like, it's so it just feels so yummy to me. It just
Thank
feels
you.
so expansive, and so it just, really touches my heart
Thank you,
that
Julie.
you're bringing all of this, like, this is all a part of you. This is all a part of who you are, and your background, and your experiences. There's just a ton of depth there. So, let's go back because I have questions.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm here for this.
So growing up in Belarus,
Mhm.
what was the spiritual climate there?
Mm.
Did you have any, like, religious or spiritual
Love this.
education or anything in that
Julie, I
space?
love this so much. I never been asked that question. No, in fact, Soviet Union, right? The communism, as the way that how it was very discouraged, right? The religion per se was very discouraged. And when I was born, it was this time of Soviet Union where things were more liberal, where things were more heading towards democracy. So people were able to practice any type of religion that was allowed by government. And so Christian orthodoxy is mainly that's the main religion historically. But also there, I guess after 1970s, there was a kind of a revival of the church, of the Christian church there. So my mom, she practices Christian orthodoxy, so she's Christian Orthodox, but my dad, of course, is a complete atheist. Just complete. There is nothing. There is no greater intelligence. Just the material world is the ruler of the world, kind of thing. And that allowed me to grow up with a very much liberal ideas about spirituality. So I didn't have to. Well, in fact, anybody listening to me and knowing what Eastern European grandmother is, my grandmother, of course, took me to church, but I didn't have a really good first experience because they had to tell me that I was sinful and you have to follow all of the traditional rules of the church to commit that you are not great and so now you have to do this work in order for you to redeem your sins. And at 9, I think I was 9, I was like, nope. I was like, I'm not sinful. Who told you that? Like what information you got? I'm not sinful. I'm not doing this. This is wrong. So I had a very rebellious understanding of spiritual thought. And I knew immediately that the traditional way how it's done in my part of the world, I'm not going to follow that as my spiritual life. But since little, I was curious about this question. So there was a big, I guess, urge to learn more about what's beyond this. There's something more. There's something more to understand. And so, very first, I remember there was this interest in yoga. I remember finding some books in some weird bookshops about yoga, about Tibetan Buddhism specifically intrigued me greatly. And then I remember also at like 12, 13, I started reading Freud. So now, close to 40, I'm understanding that, yeah, that's not a regular child that likes to just read Freud and Carl Jung and Tibetan Buddhism. I would kind of like have really think there's something already happening back then to me that was kind of destined me for some more exploration of this life, of the spiritual life, of the esoteric, I guess, metaphysical life.
Oh, I can relate to that so much because I was the young teenager that was reading books like I'm okay, you're okay, and
Exactly.
The Road Less Traveled and
I love that.
all that
Yeah.
kind of thing, like, just exploring, like, the mind and the thought patterns and,
Yeah.
like, what makes us who we are and all of that. And actually, as you're talking and I'm, like, hearing all this, and I know you're just brilliant with astrology
Thank you.
and human design, and as I'm hearing you talk, I'm like, "Oh, I wanna see his chart 'cause I wanna see all this because it's, like, so explore like, your
Yeah.
whole life, just even hearing these tidbits,
Yes.
pieces that I wasn't aware of, just having been in your orbit for the last few years, I wasn't as aware of these
I don't
tidbits.
always talk about them, but
Yeah.
yes, when I get to talk to it, my Jupiter shines then. I get to expose my Jupiter and be like, I have Jupiter Sun opposition, so when I get to shine my Jupiter, I'm doing it selflessly.
I
Yeah.
love it, I love it. I love it so much. So what brought you to okay, so yoga, you had this yoga influence. Is that what brought you to Asian studies, or was it
Actually,
something else?
absolutely not. It was absolute, I would say, just play of destiny. I honestly, till now, when people ask me, "Why did you choose to study Chinese?" I passed my exams and I entered university to study, what we call international relationship.
Yeah.
And then I was sort of like, yeah, thinking that I'll be studying diplomacy and all of this. And so I somehow, I don't know how, but this is exactly the mystery of life. Somehow I've gotten into this meeting room where the students were gathering to understand which language they're going to be studying. And I knew that my faculty, the one that I entered, was called international linguistics, international relationships. In my in my world, I thought, oh, of course, it's going to be English because I was studying English in school and I was good at English and English. I just wanted to do English. Nothing else interested me in life but English. So English was my language. I wanted to speak English. I wanted to live somewhere where people speak English, and I was obsessed with it. And of course, I
So
passed
did
English.
you speak English as a young person, or was this something you
I
learned in
studied.
university?
We studied at school, so I studied it from the first grade since I was 6, but there is no practice, right? So
Okay.
back there, we don't, when I was growing up, there was no this TV shows that you can turn on and just listen to people speak in English. You had to buy cassettes because I'm still coming from the part of the world and from generation when you have to buy CDs, cassettes, and books to study things, right? You cannot just accessibly, even Wi-Fi, internet was not really available when I was studying English. So I wouldn't say I really spoke English well up until I went to travel and started practicing it. I knew tons of grammar. I was brilliant in grammatical orders. I knew exactly how to use grammar and my vocabulary was great, but practice was not. But I was passing exams and I was good to the level, but I wasn't really speaking it. So here I am at this meeting of students and the dean of faculty is talking about these 4 languages and I'm like waiting for him to say it's going to be Spanish, German, maybe English, and some kind of other European language. And he goes, all right, so these are the students that are choosing between these 4 languages. And I'm like, what are the languages? He goes, Chinese, Japanese, Farsi, and Arabic. And I'm thinking, hold on, what like, it's like a dream kind of thing. And I'm knowing I'm not in the point to walk out to say, "Oh, I'm in the wrong room." I'm almost having a moment of like, probably it meant to happen to me. It just meant to happen that I'm about to study this Asian language. Like the life is redirecting me. Life is saying, "No, you're not gonna go to the West. You're gonna go to the East."
Wow.
And when I heard Chinese, I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." For whatever reason, that made sense to me. Not knowing anything about Chinese, not knowing how hard Chinese language is, how
Right.
how much effort it takes. It's almost like I guess this idea when we look, when we hear about human design, we're like, I'm gonna study this. I'm gonna this is it. This is my thing. I'm gonna go for it. And so I went in for it. It was challenging as hell. Chinese language is so hard,
I can't
especially
even imagine, like, you're really talking about, like, from and was your native language
is
Russian,
Russian, right?
right?
Exactly.
So these are totally different
Oh, yeah.
language
Right.
structures.
Right.
Russian, English, Chinese. Like,
Oh,
we're not even talking about romance languages,
no, 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 no.
that kind of intertwine a little bit. It's like whole new systems. I'm just so intrigued.
Well, thank you. But, Julie, that's exactly why I think the way that it happens sometimes, why astrology is so fascinating sometimes, right? Because as you said, when you look at charts, sometimes it helps you really understand those moments in life where you made this decision that made no sense to your rational mind. Your rational mind was like, what are you doing? Like, this is not where you were heading, but here you're heading there. But sometimes this is how things align for us. And we need to be open for a challenge. It's not just being open for, oh, it's just going to be just this butter path of me going smoothly through life. No, sometimes there are going to be extreme challenges in life that are going to take you to a place where you're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, I was kind of meant to make this choice. It's kind of meant to
Big turning
go on
points.
this huge turning points. Exactly. Huge
Yeah,
turning.
interesting. So I have a philosophy, and this might feel like a question out of left field, but
Hmm.
I'm gonna just share kind of my philosophy with you and
Hmm.
get your feedback on this, because I have this philosophy that as a soul, we planned our travels here. We planned our trip here to the Earth, and we planned kind of the bigger points like we would if we were traveling, right? I'm gonna visit this city, I'm gonna visit this city, but we don't know exactly what's gonna happen within those cities, right? So I have this philosophy that we have a soul plan, and that in order to carry out that soul plan, that the universe, God, source, whatever words you wanna use there, helps us to design our life so that we're coming in at birth at just the time that we are being infused with the energies of the planets and the aspects that we need to carry out that soul plan. I'm curious what your thoughts are about that, or
I
whether that makes sense to you at
I
all.
very no, I very much agree. I just in my own way haven't really formulated this as beautifully as you did. But it's clearly, in my career, right, in my current work that I do with people looking at charts, it's almost clear to know, looking at their charts, looking at how planets combine and how they align during the moment of our birth, is that it absolutely going to make an impact on your behavior, on your choices, on your levels of awareness. And you are here either cooperate with that awareness and to understand that about yourself, know thyself type of issue, and use that for some kind of benefit and evolution, like you said, right? Or you're here to completely disregard it. You're here, in fact, maybe even uh, resist your talents, resist the potential, and see how that's going to unfold for you.
Interesting.
So it's absolutely. I mean, I'm supporting what you're saying, but I'm also kind of telling you that there is, in my world, there is almost a quantifiable experience, uh, confirmed operational system that just completely confirms that to me. To say, hey, I can see a few patterns in your life. And we kind of, like you said, in astrology, I mean, we see exactly what that evolutionary theme could feel and be like. We don't know exact events, how they're going to happen, but we understand the psychological, emotional theme feeling of that journey. And
Mm,
it's up to you to say, "Oh no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm against this journey. I just gonna. I don't want to do this. I want to do a whole different thing and see how that's going to work out for you. Because maybe there is your way to do it as well. So I don't know, but I just know that when you cooperate, things tend to go a little bit more effortlessly in life.
yeah. It's almost like when you say that, when we cooperate, things go a little better. It's not that it goes perfect, but we're avoiding the additional
Yes,
challenges.
exactly. Exactly.
Mm,
So
yeah.
recently on another podcast, this host gave me this brilliant, simple analogy that I kind of forget myself. So now I just credit this other host that gave me this analogy. He said, it's like knowing that it's raining and you're going to grab umbrella. You know, can you be like myself, a reckless Eastern European, and say, I don't need an umbrella? Keep your umbrella. I just gonna go get soaked and wet and maybe then get sick, and be in a wet clothes and then continue my journey in wet clothes. But if I know it's pouring and somebody's offering me umbrella, I just have to be completely blind and clueless not to grab an umbrella and continue my journey. Because I can get wet, not use umbrella, or I can just sit and cry and say, "Oh, I don't know what to do." Right? No, you
Okay,
can. Go
I'm
ahead.
totally laughing because you're reminding me of my husband
Mhm.
who will put on shorts to go out, and it doesn't matter that it's 40 degrees
Yeah,
outside.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but then he's an Aries, so we're just gonna put it at that.
Exactly. Exactly. The fire sign gotta do the fire thing.
He's gotta do what he's gotta do.
Exactly. Exactly. True.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so what happened in China? You were there for 10 years and you had, I imagine some remarkable experiences there.
Remarkable experiences. Again, we're gonna drop inside joke here, Julie, and I don't remember exactly. No, I think you're 3'6", human design
Yeah,
profile, right? So you're
yeah.
3'6", I'm 6'3", so it was very much my of 3-3 period of time. For those of you that don't know what that means, reach out to Julie or myself, we can tell you more. But it was this 3-3 period of my life, up pretty much up until 30, where I really impressed myself that I survived, that I made it through because there were all type of experiences of my life. Fun, great, a lot of learning, but also to a degree that I was like, wow, how did I live so much of my life being a bit reckless, not really paying attention to things. So I'm grateful. But it was not easy. Let's put it this way. It was not
Yeah,
easy. Would I go back at this stage of my life? Absolutely yes, but also having probably a whole different perception of how to do life, not being just a young adult with no life experience.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, extremely very enriching experience of life for sure.
It had to be so transformative. How did that
Yeah,
how did that, influence your spiritual,
life. Yeah,
beliefs or
yeah.
life or thoughts?
Definitely it only took me immigrating, then moving to the United States in order for me to actually understand the whole difference, right? Because I think from now, what I'm also understanding, the Russian culture, right? Let's call it Slavic culture, right? Because Belarus is part of a Slavic world. I guess it has more of similarity to Asian culture to some way, because there are many, many different notions and characteristics, but there is, I guess, more of understanding of being more reserved and more. Yeah, I think it's a huge jar of worms that we don't need to open. But there's huge differences in those cultures, right? So I feel like when I lived in Eurasia, right, when I was in Russia and then moving to Asia, those cultures they still have similarities. But then
Mm,
moving all the way to the West, to the United States, being exposed to the American culture, some way of Hispanic culture to some degree as well, you understand that there's just such a opposite flair to the world, right? The world that is more externally um, paying attention to material reality more, how individuality is way more important because you got to be individual in order for you to show up and thrive and be a brand and do this. In Asia, all of those things, they are not as prominent. They're not as into your face. Right, so
mm,
there was, I guess, a bit of this inner conflict where I had to come out from this Buddhist reality, and I actually was very deeply in Buddhism. In fact, to the degree that I took what is called in Buddhism, you kind of like, I guess, convert in some degree. Being Buddhist, I took what we call you take a refuge. So you kind of start practicing Buddhism in a more official way.
yeah,
I'm not doing that anymore because then I realized that my path is way more unique, I guess, way more unconventional. So I cannot really follow any specific religious path. But anyway, so moving to the United States was a bit of a challenge to my spirituality as well, right? Because suddenly you need to make that part of your life working for this highly externalized life. And plus, like you mentioned, I entered the world of suddenly my fitness career really picked up. And I was in New York working for quite prominent brands and, where I had to very much show myself and be this being who is very much in front of others and showing up my talents and my gifts and my movement skills. And God forbid you're not appreciating it. So then I don't feel good about myself. So there was all this things that I had to experience. They were conflicting a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's a
Is
different.
that what brought you to the States with
Yes,
your
and
fitness career?
yeah, my fitness career definitely was something that inspired me to know that because I was already developing quite a strong fitness presence in Asia, but where I was, I knew that I wouldn't be able to really bring it up to the height that I would like it to. And it was important for me back then in my late 20s, early 30s, and the opportunity showed up, and it just really turned out to be really great to a degree, but then COVID came, and then whole entire paradigm of my life shifted again. Like, I didn't experience more shifts in my life. Another shift of paradigm happened.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, 2020, things came to a stall, right? So fitness also came to this moment where you either revolutionize or you remain the same. And I think I also had a lot of inner I actually had it was a great point because I it made me pause. It made me pause and realize that there was this other parts of my life that I had no time for, and I had literally no physical energy for because I was so externally focused on all of my goals and my conferences and things where I teach and things that I do and how much I show up and how many classes a day I teach, how many people come to me, all this external marks of success that I had to tick. And I was doing great taking them for 6, 7 years living in the States. And it actually was to the moment where my career felt really like peaking to a really great degree. And I was, oh, this is 2020 going to be the best year for me. I had all my schedule planned out of international conferences, regional conferences, engagements. March 2020, things
Oh,
start to crumble. All my plans, all of my calendars, all of my bought tickets and bought engagements started to fall apart. They start to be digital. And I'm understanding, oh no, hold on. This is not what I'm subscribed for. And in fact, this big notion of human design starting coming back again, because of course, astrology and human design was something that I would use even in my early era of starting fitness because I was very curious, as you could imagine, about my clients wanting to achieve their goals, and wanting to have their better bodies and being healthy, but constantly hitting some kind of walls. So even back then, I'd be like, there must be somewhere needs to be an answer. And so I would start looking at their charts, physically train people to be like, oh, hey, this is where you're hitting the wall. It's not just about your fitness. It's also maybe we need to look at your relationships. Maybe we need to look at your home, because this could be affecting literally your health, right? Because we, as a Westerners, we don't always think in this holistic way about things. Anyway, so that's a little jumping.
so when did you make this connection between human design and fitness? Like, was this
Fitness, yeah.
before 2020 or during the lull of 2020 that you
2020, that's when I stepped into this practical field of like, I have to bring it into my work. This is where my ecosystem of aliveness really started picking up because I was like, this is something that I carried as a potential of knowing that one day I will finally marry my fitness work, my movement work with astrology, human design work of archetypes, helping people to kind of not just be body and mind, but also mind, body, spirit kind of work together. Again, now as I'm more polarized myself in astrology world, I know that this is the work that I heavily do that. But eventually, one day, I want to really hugely bring them together. Anyway, but 2020 was the year where I stepped into that more. I knew that I over polarized myself in the movement so much in that career. I need to step out of it in order for me to really ground myself even more in this idea of human design and how this could help people in their wellness.
Yeah.
So, but it started way back then. I would even say it started when I was just, teenager looking at some basic astrology books and be like, oh wow, being Virgo really resonates with me, like this is funny how descriptions can be so pretty much to the point. And not the weekly horoscopes, but more of the personality descriptions of what it means to be Virgo and how we're designed, things like that. But of course, then my practice greatly, greatly deepened to a degree that it's not just about this superficial readings of the sun horoscopes and things like that.
Yeah. Wow. What a journey. What a journey. So,
I'm glad I have something to say.
oh, you definitely have something to say. I'm so appreciative of you being so open about your story and your experiences, and I just I find myself listening to you saying, "I wanna see this in movie form."
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you. Thank you.
I just one day someone's gonna do a documentary on Yury Rockit.
Well, let's see. I mean, again, that would be a big challenge for my persona. Even this already sometimes could be a little bit challenging to like step out and talk about my some journey and some of my achievements, but also some of my errors, right? Because as a 6'3" or 3'3", you highly greatly appreciate them when you understand them. You kind of understand that some of your choices that might didn't feel so great in the moment, and they might have been challenging to a degree, they actually led to some important developments in your life, important achievements.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, but trust me, even this notion of being able to be, it's very, very interesting how life is. Like throughout my whole life, I had to, like my purpose was being in front of people. I had to be in front of people. I have to show them some kind of gifts. I have to inspire them to get to their gifts, to their better states of well-being, of their health. And as a child, I remember being so, so shy. Like, I'm still shy, when people talk about me or they introduce me at events, there is a being in me that just like becomes so small. And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta like now step out and actually talk to people. So that's still there. I understand exactly where that is in my chart. That's the wonderful Chiron and Gemini that I have to work on a daily basis and just bring myself forward and say, hey, I actually got a message to deliver. I got to shine here, even though I don't wake up with this thought on a daily basis. Oh, I get to share myself with others. I get to share about my life experiences. And Julie, I greatly appreciate you giving the opportunity to talk about myself a little bit more.
yeah, yeah. So like I said, when we met, we were studying human design. When did you make this shift? Because it's interesting to watch you kind of moving into this space where, if you're not already following Yuri, you need to follow Yuri, like, follow his videos. So informative, so to the point, so Virgo of you to be
Virgos, got it,
to the
got it.
point,
Practical.
detailed,
We have no time.
practical.
Let's do practical. Yeah.
I have a lot of, um, Virgo placements, so I really appreciate what you bring to astrology in that way, but, um, when did you make this shift, and what preceded making this shift from kind of the fitness and the human design into, like, it feels like now you've kind of moved very distinctly into the astrology world. So what created that shift and finding yourself in this place
Yeah, that's such a good
so
question.
and so successfully and
Uh,
so
y you know,
beautifully?
thank you. For me, it goes back again to languages, right? And that's where I think my journey always started with the languages. And this is how I kind of see this, right? Because one of my first languages that I learned was, well, apart from my mother language, Russian. Well, I also speak our smaller language that is Belarusian, but English was first language that I got to learn that helped me to expand, very Jupiterian of me, to expand my consciousness, right? Oh, there are different cultures, there are different ways of seeing the world, right? Because then as you study different culture, you get to study different systems of different countries, how they live their life and their customs and things like that, right? So then the next language was my Asian languages. And that's again greatly hijacked my way of expanding my mind and seeing beyond. And also, as you seeing other cultures, you innately understanding more about yourself, right? That's another Jupiterian part of our chart. When we expand our mind, we're going to face the mirrors, first of all, and we're going to start reflecting on us. How are we similar? How are we different? So that was this progression through languages. Then I had to, there was very important part why movement in general came into my life, again, sixth house Virgo. So well-being and health gotta show up because doing movement, doing exercise, living in Asia helped me literally deal with the cultural overwhelm. Like just understanding how can I
Mm.
physically, mentally take care of myself. And through that, here comes the gate. What is it? I think it's gate 50s, gate 46, I think, in human design, love of the body. So, and that I understood like the more I'm doing something for my body, the more I'm able to help myself to center, not be in my fears and my phobias and my overwhelms, but more in me, my language, the
Mm.
language that I can really talk to my body. So movement was another language that I can use to communicate with myself. Then eventually I was like, oh, actually, maybe something I can use teach others, right? It's like, hey, you can actually do some movement and you might find yourself feeling better about things in life. And that worked out as that type of translator, right? So I was a bit of a translator of those languages before. And then, of course, the next layer had to be spiritual life, right? And then that kind of started with learning and studying Buddhism and Taoism and all of those philosophical systems. But I needed more practicality. As Virgo of me needed charts, Virgo of me needed practicality, Virgo of me needed mechanical ways of seeing things. And then astrology started to make sense because I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. This is a whole wheel, and there are 12 areas, and you can really see things and you can understand these archetypes. So that was brilliant. But then, so that was another language for me, literally. And then human design showed up in my area. And I love what human design hooked me in with was the understanding of archetypes. So it's even simplified astrology even more, right? Because astrology, it's 12 signs. And then if you have a planet in every single sign, then it's just you have to synthesize so much.
Mhm.
The brilliance of human design was that it's still based on astrology that says somebody already synthesized it for you. All you
Mhm.
got to pick, you just got to do calculation and find out of your 4 energy types, you find out which one you are and start your journey from there and start uncovering more and more pieces. So finding out that I was manifesting generator kind of clicked. Then the big click really happened, understanding that I was a profile that I am. And that really, weirdly enough, to a degree that I first freaked out about it. I was like, this is so accurate to the point that I don't wanna even, like, touch it because it's so
Yeah.
weirdly accurate to how my life is. But then come 2020, I was like, "This is it. I gotta surrender. I gotta really embrace this one more language, one more energy language that I wanna master and learn and start translating that language to other people," right? Because as you know, not everybody has a capacity or interest even or Virgo capacity to sit with the chart and actually make sense out of it, right? So being a translator with my language background is kind of works the same, right? You hear what one person is saying, you help it to transform that language into another language and deliver it to people from a different perspective. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah,
that
I'm enthralled. Yeah, so it's like you're taking the chart, you understand the language of the chart, then you're synthesizing that information to deliver it to people so that they can have some understanding in their language, right?
So
So you must have, like, you keep talking about the Jupiterian and, like, I imagine there's, like, a lot of Sagittarius energy in your chart with all the, like, travel and the higher learning and the
yeah.
it just feels very Sagittarian to me.
Yeah, yeah. I do have a bunch of Sagittarius energy in my chart. It's not prominent. Again, I have Saturn and Saturn and Uranus in Sag, but my Jupiter is in opposition to my Sun, so there is this constant opposition of my personality and the alter ego personality that lives foreign countries. So Jupiter kind of affects a lot my chart in some degree.
Yeah.
So, and it again,
And Jupiter is the planet of Sagittarius. Am I
yes,
remembering
correct.
correctly?
It's a
Right.
ruler.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a ruler of Sagittarius. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it kind of rules bunch of it influences bunch of placements in my chart. And but again, it's an energy that you also need to understand how to embody it well. Because
Mhm.
one thing to know that you have it and be this relentless, restless being that just wants to constantly expand, 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 do, manifesting generator. But that is why exactly then you understand the other features of your chart that tell you, hey, how we actually make sense out of all of this expansion. How can we
Yeah.
structure it, right? How can we
And your Virgo grounding, the earth sound grounding
yeah,
versus the
Julie.
fire of yeah.
Exactly, Julie. But also, that's a lot of times that I also tell people about their charts. Something that I think for a while I was a bit shaming myself for being Virgo, for being this being that is very analytical, not to a degree analytical. Trust me, I can be. Look at my narration, right? I'm jumping from things to things. So analytical point to what degree? It's analytical, but it's probably not very strategic. It's just analysis, but it's very an abstract way. Analyzing things. It's like
But it
lights.
comes naturally to you.
I guess it's come naturally, yes. But
Yeah.
but it's still I had to lean in, and all of us have to do this in our chart because I do notice when I do readings with other people, for example, let's say a person has a lot of Capricornian energy in them, but for whatever reason, they've learned somewhere, or they may be from their life experiences from a kind of like a shadow way of expressing as a Capricorn, they learn that it's not a good thing to do. So they try to be like, let's say, a Pisces, such a completely different energy, and maybe their progress sun is in Pisces or whatever, but they absolutely need to lean in into being a Capricorn. Like in my
Yeah.
case, I had to absolutely lean in and embrace being sixth house Virgo. When the moment I do this, this is where I shine. I shine working, I shine loving my work. I also burn out working too much. And that's where you have to absolutely start learning those lessons. They're clearly written in your chart. And yes, of course, we are so much more complex than our charts, but there are some very direct pointers in your chart. They say, hey, don't just get lost all over the places. Don't be Pisces. I mean,
Yeah.
although that's good too. But learn to focus, narrow down your vision into specific pointers and learn how to use that energy and know and notice how that might unlock so much in your life. You know?
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting point because it's not about, like, going to human design or astrology and saying, "Oh, this is who I have to be," and,
Mhm.
this rigid, like, box type
Right.
situation. It's not that at all in my mind. It's more confirming who we really are and
Exactly.
giving us permission to let go of a lot of the conditioning that says, "Hey, you're not supposed to travel all over the world. You're supposed to get a 9 to 5 job and live in one place and live," kind of the old traditional thing. And it's allowing us to see our authenticity in a different way, and giving us permission to kinda let go of some of the things that aren't serving us,
Yes.
but we've been afraid to let go of.
Yes.
Does that make sense at all?
100%, 100%. And also
Like
what I hear is also this reminder, of just like a generalized advice that we sometimes hear, and somehow we think, oh, should work for me. It worked for this person. This person was very convincing. And maybe if I do this, you know, it, it will work for me. Like, for example, and this is where I'm getting a little bit preachy, seeing things on Instagram these days or on social media where people just manifesting, you don't have to hustle. And that's, human design sometimes also does this, like you don't have to hustle. You can just sit and envision your life and things gonna stream into you and you're gonna make 600 figure, whatever figure, right? Yeah, that's a message, but you gotta take that message, practice it, see how that goes in your life, what it do in your life and see what you can achieve with that message. But and maybe that is not completely your message. Your message might be, hey, you actually need to get focused in what you're good at and build your work. Of course, not to become a slave, but to really embody some sense of work ethic. Maybe for you that actually is healthy, right? Like as a manifesting generator, if you're not doing things in life and you're just beating around the bush and you have no focus in your life as a strategic being, it's going to start eating you up.
Yeah, yeah,
And then, of course, you look at somebody who is a projector, who has maybe even more abstraction. Yeah, maybe they don't need to do the hustle. They don't do 24/7, but still there needs to understand what's their gift, what's their potential, because when they discover that, there also probably could be a work that might lead them to their self actualization moment in life, right? It might lead to, so they're all of this individual factors, right? That's where the maps, the astrology chart and human design chart, they can really show us those highly individualized point of our life,
yeah,
where the generalized advice might not make no freaking sense in your life at all, and this is big danger, again, a huge danger. And I think like when people say, "Oh, don't whatever people say." Even the astrologers sometimes look at people chart and say, "Oh, you don't look for work right now." Like people get to decide for themselves.
yeah,
Do they want to find the work or not? Right? As a translator, and that's what something that I learned was a translator. All you got to do is stay neutral. You're receiving one message. Your thing is to make the most out of the message without twisting the message and say, hey, I'm
mm,
receiving one language here. I'm translating it to your language, trying to make you understand the language, but you get to make a decision. You, after all, it's all
yeah,
up to you what you're going to do with the message, like what you would do right now, right? I'm going to say something, and there's this beautiful, beautiful experiment when linguistic experiment, right? That tells us how imperfect language models are. Because what I'm saying, if 100 people going to listen to us, 100 people going to receive a whole different message out of this podcast. There
yeah,
might be some similarity, but 100 people going to take out so many different ideas out of this podcast, what resonated with them. And in fact, when they get to retell the story, they'll probably go, the story going to sound it's so different, from how I delivered it to you, how you heard it, and things like that.
right,
And that's the imperfection of language. And imagine we are reading charts, we're delivering the symbolic language to a person, and it's very dangerous when to make to kind of like not sway people. And if anything, what we have to do as astrologers or consultants or whoever to kind of allow people say, hey, this is what I'm understanding, this is what I'm seeing. What do you think? How does it
yeah,
feel for you? What's the resonance point for you? How about you live with this information and you experiment with this without any drastic, radical movements? Oh, quit your job, or oh, kind of like see what is your body telling
yeah. Well, I have to say, so a couple things
you?
bonding to what you were just talking about. One thing I have to say before I respond to that is that
Yes.
you did a reading for me not long ago, one of the best readings I've ever had. It was so, um it was so you so beautifully expressed what you were seeing in the chart, and you did it in a way like, I have some language around astrology, I've studied it, I can actually, read charts for people, um, and but the way like, you're grounded, like you said, neutral but grounded, but very, I there was depth, but there was e I can't even express. So it was a beautiful reading, and I really, really appreciated that. The other thing that I'm hearing as you're talking about this individuality is that we can have a gift or a talent for something,
Mhm.
and I always think about, like basketball.
Mhm.
It's like saying, "Oh, everybody should be a basketball player."
Mhm.
Well, can everybody pick up a ball
Mhm.
and bounce it on the ground? Probably, probably. But is everybody meant to be a basketball player?
Exactly.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's really identifying those gifts and talents and not and owning that it's okay to be the individual. It's okay to express things in a different way, but also the person who has a talent for basketball, if they want to actually do something with that, they've got to practice
Exactly.
every day. So it's not only understanding our gifts and talents,
Yeah.
it's then bringing that into some kind of order. You know,
That's
it
really
it
so beautifully said.
it's I had this when I was working with a client one day, and spirit brought me to my light above me here, and the idea, and I'd never thought of it this way, but electricity, it has always been in our presence, but it wasn't until it was organized
Good.
that we had light. And so, yeah, so it's that it's that balance between having the gifts and putting in the work, having the gifts and putting in the work, and
Julia,
yeah.
and just to kind of add on to also this, for those of you who might be listening and you know your charts and you know that there are some hard aspects in your chart or those things that make you feel like a victim because there is this planet in your chart that do this. Actually, a lot of successful people that become basketball players, why they get to the degree of success is because they have a hard aspect in their chart, the aspect that creates a friction. And usually, people that have all these positive aspects, aspects that just make their life a breath of air, just there's breezy, easy, cheesy life, they usually get nowhere because exactly easy aspects in chart gives you no potential of friction that needs to be released.
Yeah.
So those of you that listening, as Julie said, light, and electricity, and even light bulb, right? We know that light bulb was it Edison? Right? I gotta say
Yes.
something,
Uh-huh.
right? So I think it was like his, I don't know, 1,000 trials of the light bulb that actually got successful because it was constant trial and error, trial until one day I think he was just about to give up. I think maybe
Yeah.
I'm just making the story even better now, right? But it's again the notion of needing to practice, needing to think, I'm gonna get this eventually. I don't know how. I don't, there is some. I know that I love doing this, and I'm gonna just keep on looking at this, keep nailing this until one day it clicks, and one day it clicks. It just does.
Well, that's so beautiful because it really speaks to, the soul calling us forward, right? Like
Hmm. Hmm.
Edison's soul,
Yes,
like, there's no other explanation for that kind of tenacity.
exactly, exactly,
It's
exactly.
and the tenacity that we see in your life and this movement across the world, across cultures, across languages.
Yes.
It's
And
beautiful.
look, and it only takes a few decades of life to really truly have a bigger perspective of understanding why this was happening. That's also my gate 47 in my sun is in my conscious sign. A lot of times when that happening to me in the moment, I have no clue why this part, why this chapter on my life is unfolding right now. How is this actually somehow meant to make sense? In the tapestry of my life, a lot of times I'm like, okay, here comes again this new part of this development. I have no idea where this is going to come in. But then I sit on the podcast with Julie, and somehow all of this makes sense. All of this, all of those unrelated experience coming in together.
Well, and I'm just excited to see where you're headed because you
Yeah.
you haven't even fully moved into your role
No,
model
not at
phase
all.
of your line 6. So,
Exactly.
for
Thank you for being such an inspiration for all of us line sixes that are actually stepping into and showing with example, it's like showing with a true, authentic role modeling of like, hey, going into your 50s, 60s, 70s, so much fun. It could be enriching. You could be really doing things that you love doing, and looking forward to it. 40 feels like that already to me, so I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
more.
Well, one of the questions I like to ask all my guests is, what are some of the maybe spiritual practices or even practical things that you do that could help you stay connected
Mhm.
to your soul, to spirit, whatever you.
Actually, if you ask me this question, let's say pre-COVID or during the COVID, let's say 2022, I would give you such an esoteric explanation of my practice that it's just this deep meditation, this deep breath work that I do, this deep contemplative practice that took me in 2022. I would spend easily an hour of my daily life to just meditate and write and breathe. And now my spiritual practice, very much Virgo, is working with my clients.
I love that.
My absolute spiritual practice right now is sitting down with my clients, listening to them, what they got to see, what they got to say, tell them things that I see in their chart, and sometimes there are things that I don't want to tell them because I'm still coming out from my progress sun in Libra, where I just want people to be happy and then not stir anybody's pot. But I'm stepping up into my progress sun in Scorpio, so I get to say what I think and what I see. And that's from the spiritual practice right now. To be honest with myself and others, to be honest about my shadows, to be able to mention other people's shadows and say, hey, this is what I see. Maybe this is another way for us to work with this. And of course, as you probably similarly to what you do with people, right? That also requires quite a lot of time that I get to spend on my own. Because right now, without even making it any meditation or any specific ritualistic work, it's just capacity to sometimes to just go for a walk, to
Mhm.
just be. If I and it's crazy how when you meditate every day, when your practice is so spot on, you treat meditation as just, oh yeah, I do meditation. It's just, yeah, it's a practice that it's wonderful. But when you really at the peak of your busy life with intention and life is really happening with everything is going on, when you crave out those 5-10 minutes of sitting in meditation, absolute gift. The years of me studying meditation in Himalayas and Kathmandu, in going away in spiritual retreats for months, being absolute, in a complete silence mode. When I get to do this now for 10 minutes in my day, and I say, "Oh my gosh, thank you! I'm so grateful. I got to practice and learn that skill in a deep, controlled environment. So now, when my life is rich but little bit hectic, a little bit like I don't feel always that I have control over my schedule because there is a demand. And as when there is a demand, as a Virgo, you go and offer, you give your service, right? That's what I do. So that's my practice. Literally lean back when I have a little bit of time, I sit and I just breathe. And that is as small as 5 minutes. And so with this being said, I want to tell everyone your spiritual practice doesn't have to be anything out of this world. It could be, and in fact, this is Saturn moving into Aries. This is astrological way that we're going to be living life. We're bringing spirituality in day-to-day life. There is no more just, this I live in the big temples out there and I come down from the Himalayas and now I'm enlightened leader. And this era is done, especially moving in 2027. Again, a little knob drop there. We are now here to live our spiritual practice in a day-to-day life. Julie, what about you? If you
Oh,
don't mind me asking.
that's fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we go that maybe we haven't talked about? But also, tell people where they can find you, because I know everyone's gonna wanna find you.
Like I hope so. Julie, thank you so much. First of all, if you don't mind me asking, what is just before we get back to me, what is your spiritual practice?
What is my spiritual practice? It's a smorgasbord. It's definitely meditation, it's definitely prayer, it's definitely inspired reading.
Mm,
Um, Sometimes it's playing the piano, honestly.
yes. Yeah.
But it's a smorgasbord. I don't tend to do the same things every day.
Yeah.
I have this toolbox of spiritual practices, and when I get up in the morning, I'm like, "Okay, what do I need today?" And sometimes I sit down and I journal, and I just listen to my spirit guides, and I just journal what they're sharing with me, and I try to do that a few times a week.
I love this. Yeah.
But yeah. And then doing this podcast, I've learned from so many beautiful people, all these different ideas, and sometimes I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I remember Yuri saying this. I'm gonna try that today," you know?
Yeah.
So
Well, Yuri said basically, do nothing. Just do your life. That's what Yuri said. That's your spiritual life. Do you. But I love what you said, inspired reading. I also very like that notion of inspired reading because honestly, that's what I do. Actually, that's what I do when I wake up super early in the morning before I start my engagements and
Same.
my work. I just sit down with my coffee, my tea, and I just read something. Like just focused reading, allowing focus, yeah, to spark up. So, but I love this. Back to me, Julie.
Yes.
Uh, you friends, whoever, if you're interested in my work, please find me on social media, Instagram specifically at Yury Rockit. I'm going to share that, and you'll find bunch of material there that you can use for your own practices, for your own exploration of astrology. And yeah, just reach out if you would like to hop on a call and explore your chart in more depth. I'm always there available to speak to
Yeah.
people.
And your appointment link is right there in
Yes.
Instagram, so
Yeah.
when people find you
Thank
there,
you.
they can link over to your other offerings,
Thank
so
you.
it's awesome.
Julie, and as a last closing, something I think you mentioned, if there was one thing that I'd like to mention to people, I think it also comes into the understanding of spiritual practice, what our spiritual practice could be. I would say as we're moving into this year and 2000 in the rest of year 2020s and 2030s, we are in a such acceleration of information, of air, fire, energy that I recommend everyone to start practicing whatever that is for you, either disconnecting, doing digital retreats sometimes, really identifying, right? It doesn't have to be looking like you're afraid of AI, or I'm not promoting any of that. If anything, you need to go embrace the world of information and see what is there for you to learn. But it's very important that we have a clear distinguishing space between information, how much information I receive, and how much I can handle.
Mm,
Because when you are at a point of information overload, I don't want you even to get there. We need to be very clear of a frequency because we're stepping in such an era. We've been in an era of frequency, but now even more so, we are in absolute time of frequency. And
mm,
how some people break it down, it's like, what is frequency? It's what are you frequently seeing? The more you
mm,
are seeing this specific news or this specific scandal or this specific thing, you're constantly giving your frequency to that. So to all of you who are listening, be very particular how much time, because every month of this year, there will be next thing that requires your frequency. And there will be all these things that really pull you in. They will be so scandalous, they will be so dark, they will be so sensational, and going to be constantly pulling. And you will probably notice in 2026 how the news already, they're not just they're just so what's the word? I don't know. The word is they're just bigger than life. Before they were just scandal here and this and that. Now it's a scandal of scandal of scandal.
the
It's
scandal of the day, the scandal of the week, and
weak, exactly.
and the
There are
things that used to, like, take up the time in the news for days and weeks at a time
yeah,
are now coming, and then the next thing comes, and then the next thing
exactly,
comes, and
exactly. It's like a TV show now. It's like there's no end of this.
yeah, a new episode every day.
Exactly. New episode. It is bad. It's worse. And so what I want to tell everyone also, that's Aquarian moment for all of us to experience this, but it's also our Aquarian training is to be able to some healthy way to detach and say, oh, how interesting. This is the era, and this is the old way of things crumbling. And of course they're going to make a big fuss about it. But also, what am I building? Where am I focusing my energy? What am I building for myself? What world do I want to live? Where do I stream this? Because the more you give attention to that composting energy, that's where you're literally streaming it. But the more you bring it into connection, meaningful connection in your life, your work, your purpose, you doing you fully actualizing, because you're building then society in a collective of actualized beings, not the crumbling beings that are, they're anyway. So we don't have to go there, but
Wow.
that would be the final word,
That
frequency.
that's an amazing, nugget that you just dropped there, and I've never actually thought about it, like, frequency, like, I've never associated those terms together, but it makes a world of sense, and I just feel like at some point we need to have you back on to kinda give us a weather report
The
of
weather
of
report, yeah. Well, let's look at February. February is the big month of weather happening in astrology. I mean, February, March, and April. Those are really big months, and let's see how weather is going to change. And then we probably
Yes.
get a lot of material, not to just discuss, but really even see the events that unfolded. Because
Yeah.
I mean, we're already seeing them unfolding anyway. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
just like,
really unbelievable. It's
yeah,
really unbelievable. Well, what a treat. Thank you so much.
really, thank you.
It's like I always tell people, I have the coolest friends.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed connecting.